So it's April the 22nd, and I've come back out to the same spot that I was at this morning. I was hoping to, it's quite a drive to get here, and it's right out in the middle of nowhere, so there's no signal or anything. It's about, it's gone 8 o'clock, it's about 8:10 past, something like that. It's a lovely little spot, and I'd seen deer after I finished making the video this morning. I've seen deer. They weren't, it wasn't close, but it was within 50 feet, which is quite close. You know, they're not very trusting animals, if you know what I mean. I was hoping to come back up, catch some deer, be really quiet, catch some deer, get it on film, and then turn the camera around and, you know, sort of make a video. But yeah, I was getting bitten to death out there, and I just never made it before. It's got a little bit too dark for the camera, so I can see fine in the woods, but obviously the camera just picks up black, so that was that. There's some stuff I don't go into too much because you don't. Sometimes when you're speaking about all this stuff that comes to you, synchronicities, thoughts in your head, the sort of things that reveal themselves to you in the night and witching hour and things like that, there's not many people out there who are very accepting of it. They would class it as being some kind of mental illness or whatever, but my way of thinking is these people with, you know, with all these who are locked up in these lunatic asylums and people with schizophrenia and things like that are actually probably more sane than us. But what actually happens is that they've never had anybody to guide them. They just have these amazing experiences, but they fear them. They go into a state of panic because they've got nobody there, no elders, should I say, to guide them along and tell them exactly what they're experiencing and how to deal with it, how to get rid of those unwanted spirits, and how to get away from, you know, anything that's negative, and how to spot the good stuff and just let it all happen and not fear it. I had to deal with my own stuff in my own way. When I, you know, since I was a child, I've had funny things happen, but I didn't share it much then, just because I was a bit worried and, you know, everything else. But then as I got older, you realise that there's a great stigmatism that comes with that sort of thing. Like, for instance, when I made the video Insights Part 2, I was stood next to that cliff face, and it was very, very, very high. You know, what you see in the video was just like the little tier at the bottom. And before I made that video, I was setting up on a wall the other side, and I was going to set up on a big tree behind it, because I usually put my phone somewhere near a tree and stand beneath a tree. But I seen this shadow, and the shadow was like, it wasn't something at the corner of my eye. It was at first, but it was like a little dark cloud, and a very, very small dark cloud. And it sort of went through the air, and it was sort of led down, and it went towards the tree, and I just thought, I'm going to relocate. And that was my reason really for saying, you know, leaving myself in a vulnerable position, because I'm stood below the rocks. You know, I wasn't worried about that entity, because I've learned how to deal with things that bridge into your reality. You know, when I was in my cottage, I called it my little megalith, because it was literally built on bedrock, and it had no damp-proof course. And it was loads of natural stone just built on top of each other with lime, and that's all they used. There was a lime kiln in my garden, so they used to make the lime for people around as well, but obviously they built the cottage out of it, and it was still up 300 odd years later. So you know, that being said, there was like, I could see Glastonbury Tor from that cottage, even though it's like 20 minutes drive down the road from where I live now, where I was living then, which is almost the same place, just down the road. And there's funny things, you know, like I was saying about the spirit I seen there. There was no worry. It wasn't very far away, actually, probably about 4 feet. So there was no worry inside of me. The worst one I ever dealt with was one in my cottage, and it come from the corner of the room right above the fireplace, by the staircase, and it was a black face with a very, very pointy chin. And you get that sense of evil from it. I mean, there was other creatures around at the same time, and things going through the air, and you know, you get that sort of quite often. when you're bridging those realities, if you know what I mean. But this one spotted me, and it looked, and it stared directly at me, and then it just started moving, and it was just moving in like this, you know, with his eyes like fixated on me, as if to try and get me or enter me, whatever it may have wanted to do. I felt like it wanted to get inside of me, if you know what I mean, possess me. And I just had this, you know, the tingles you get, the ones you get in the brain and down the back of the neck and everything else. And instead of fearing it, I had this overwhelming feeling of strength, because I was going for a real positive time at the time. And that probably was what highlighted me to all this and made all these things bridge over at the time. But yeah, and I just looked it straight in the eyes with absolute 100% confidence, because I fed up with the shit I had in my life. And I just went, not a chance, like that. And with that, I went boom, and it just disappeared from my reality. And I just knew that it would work. You know, I knew that would get rid of that particular spirit. And with that, you know, the other ones faded, but then you get the actual human spirits, and they come in funny forms. And we had, I had a lady dressed in Victorian white clothes. You know, as they did back in the day, and she used to regularly come in and mess things up, slam doors. If we started talking about her, she would start doing things, basically switching lights on and off, and there would be all these things that would happen before that as telltale signs. Me and the kids or whatever used to sit down on the sofa, and we used to go, she's upstairs, and then all the doors would slam. But sometimes she used to like walk through the front door, and I could never understand. I was trying to work out if, with these spirits and with this particular lady, which my friend done some research on when I mentioned it to him, and he actually found the spirit that was like a menacing spirit, and he showed me this picture of them all stood by a mangle, the whole family, and he said, that's the one there. That's the one that's been known to go around up and down Winscombe Hill, which is where I lived, and you know, just down the road from Winscombe Church, on the old part of Winscombe, and right on my own. You know, you can't see any houses from my place where I was. And I could never understand why he would walk through a wooden door and then come through, and then but the wooden staircase she could walk on. Like, common sense would be if a spirit walked through a wooden door, the old, you know, maybe it wasn't original when she was around there, but it was the old wooden door, surely she wouldn't be able to walk up the staircase, because she just walked through the wood or something, I don't know. But she did, she managed to walk up the staircase and went off out of sight, you know. And it gets you thinking, like, did that doorway exist? Because it was quite a wide opening, so the original, that was the porch, you know, she walked through the wooden door of the porch, but I thought, well, the porch isn't original. But I'd imagine there'd have been something there, like some sort of animal shelter there. And then the next bit may have been open, because it was like a working place, if you know what I mean. It was known as a cottage, and I think the original definition of a cottage is like one bedroom upstairs, and then downstairs is this just one room, and it's like a front room and a kitchenette sort of thing. And but our cottage has been extended on many times. And I never ever feared her. When she slammed all the doors around, I felt quite sort of privileged in a way. And that's one of the things I want to share, that when all these things are revealing themselves to you, no matter what they may be, and what these entities would be, or spirits or anything else, they may not even recognize you're there if you keep quiet. But you know which ones aren't very good, and you can sort of toughen yourself up, and you can create I don't want to be stereotypical and say to create this like shield around you, but that's exactly what you do. You can do it in many different ways. As long as you make it in your mind, that's what you got to do. You got to find the easiest way to make these shields in your mind. The easiest way that I found was to imagine myself. There's one or two things you can do. You can imagine yourself like hiding. So you pull a big blanket over your head, and you haven't got it. You just symbolise pulling it from your shoulders like a cloak or something, and pull it over your head and just stand there, and that makes you invisible. Or you can, you know, do like an exorcism of that spirit if you think that it's got inside of you, if it's managed to approach you or get inside of you. And you can do that by just cutting all the threads and expelling it out of you by literally pushing it out with your goodness, if you know what I mean. This may be a bit far-fetched for a lot of people, but it works for me, and there will be some people out there who will know more than me about it. I'm literally a little baby when it comes to all this stuff, because I've had to learn myself. As the same with everything I've done in my life, I've had to venture it for myself and just learn for myself what works for me. Probably a good way to do it, but also a very long-winded way of learning. It's no different than when you're learning about, interacting with magic. You get everything you want, but sometimes it's achieved through the most traumatic of circumstances, and that's something that's really hard to master. But yeah, I thought I'd bring up about these things and spirits, because nobody wants to talk about them. A lot of people get them, in the scientific community, they would say you're mentally ill and you need medicating, or anything like that. Again, that would tie in with the video I made this morning about the fact that, why they tend to fear this. These people in power or in positions of authority, or the scientists or anything, they fear the viruses, and the polar ice cap melting and releasing maybe viruses. They fear the people who get this connection with spirit world, or with revelations, things that come to you in the night, and things you wake up with in the morning, like when you go to bed at night and you wake up with the perfect answer in the morning. But yet a lot of these people who got into these positions got it because of that action, because of exactly experiencing those things. And that's probably where the fear comes from. So they want to medicate you, they want to take that ability away. They don't want you thinking it's any sort of normal, or knowing how to deal with it, or any sort of growth inside of you that makes you more able to spot these things. So yeah, I thought it was a bit fitting to talk about that, really, in this sort of twilight era, because strange things happen sometimes. But especially up here, this is where we get the strange lights as well. So we've got Priddy Tower. If anybody who lives local or would know about this around the Bristol area, we've got Priddy Tower over here, right in the distance. You can see from miles away. But then you've got Cheddar Gorge that away. So I'm right in between the two. And there's an area of woodland here which is very mystical. It's very strange and full of wildlife and little ponds, and it's amazing. And I'd love to go. I've come up here before now to heal in the pitch black, and the stars from this area here, even before all the lockdown happened, the view was absolutely amazing. There's no light pollution here at all, nothing. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, and speak to you all tomorrow. Bye bye.